Underwriting support for this program is provided by the Eureka Teachers Association's School Board Liaison, Philip Middlemiss. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to reconvene us into open session and ask board member Wendy Davis to report out from closed session.
All right, on item C1, there was no action to report. Item C2 was not discussed, and item C3, no action to report.
Thank you. And board member Hank Beck will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, there are. We need to pull items from the consent. Item J24. Circumstances have changed on that proposed letter of support, and also item J25. We have not received a signature from the PTA president at this time. Cannot move forward with an MOU.
Okay, we'll move down to information, and I don't believe we have any student representatives here tonight. Superintendent's report.
First off, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Paul Ziegler. He is here in the audience. Paul has accepted the CBO position for Eureka City Schools. He has started on a part-time basis right now because he's still transitioning out of the County Office of Education, but will be here July 1 full-time. We're excited to have him, and he's going to help me out later with the presentation in regards to the budget. So if you hear someone in the audience yelling things out, it's okay. Secondly, thank you board members for your attendance at graduations. We had 5 graduations over 3 days. Technically, the name is a promotion, but you know, all of them went really well. I was very pleased with the student-centeredness of our graduations and promotion ceremonies. Our kids did an incredible job. I stated it at the high school graduation and really meant it. After a student would give a speech or after a musical performance, I kept thinking, man, I do not want to follow that act. They just did a wonderful job at all graduations, and my favorite time of the year. I just love going. And then following right into that, a huge thank you to the committee that put on the Safe and Sober graduation party for Eureka High School. As a superintendent who one time, the morning after graduation, got a phone call about 3 high school students dying in an automobile accident because they had been out drinking. The place was packed. The events that they have for the kids are absolutely fantastic. They do laser tag, they do all kinds of carnival games. They had a rock climbing wall, they had go-karts. They give away an incredible amount of prizes, including the potential for a car, paddle boards, all kinds of things. This year's Safe and Sober was an incredible party, and I'm just really pleased to do that. It's a great thing for our kids, and like I said, it was packed. Every kid that walks into that is breathalyzed by the CHP and Eureka PD. They know from the beginning they cannot walk in after having had any alcohol, and then we keep them there until 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure that they're good and tired and ready to go home, hopefully. Had the opportunity to go to the All-Star Breakfast. If you haven't had an opportunity, Hank and I got to see it unveiled. The new mural in the cafeteria, which is a 100-year history, a mural that was created by a Eureka High School student, is absolutely phenomenal. It was in the newspaper. I was really happy to see them cover that. The mural's fantastic. They really did a nice job. And lastly, one of the things they talked about at the All-Star Breakfast, and a couple of numbers that just amazed me. Eureka High School students provided 26,808 hours of service learning this year in the Eureka community, and we had 54 seniors who got to wear a cord because they themselves worked over 200 hours in community events. Just an incredible thing to think that we gave back over 25,000 hours to our community by our seniors. It's one of those things that as I go to Rotary and I go to other meetings, I'm going to continue to talk about that because we continue to hear what's wrong and how our high school kids are out of control or whatever. Our kids are giving back to the community and they're doing so in a really great way. That's all I have.
We'll move down to board members' reports. Wendy?
I ditto what Greg said. I attended many of the graduations. I got to go to the Winslow preschool graduation for the first time this year, which was the highlight of my day. Oh, it was awesome. The kids were so cute and they had very little. I went to the Zoe Barnum graduation, the same promotion ceremony, and the high school graduation. All were incredible, and like Greg said, our kids are phenomenal at every level, from preschool on up to the graduating seniors. Wow, I'm just so impressed with Eureka City School kids. And I had 2 employees this year that graduated from Eureka High School, and both attended the Safe and Sober Night, and they both thought it was awesome.
Good.
They both stayed the whole time.
Oh, you have to.
They both won money, and we'll find out about the car later. I think one of them has the opportunity to go.
Yeah, the way the car is done is a
Yeah.
local car lot gives a key to every graduating class, high school, at their Safe and Sober party, and so one kid wins the key. They all go at a specific time and try to see which one starts the car, and that kid wins the car.
And I had heard, and I'm not quite sure about this, but one of my graduating seniors employees had told me that there used to be a group of auto dealers that got together and donated a car, and since then the group is kind of falling apart, and it's Opie's in McKinleyville that does it all by themselves. They donate the car because they think it's such a worthwhile thing to do, and I just thought that was just incredibly generous in them.
Okay.
Have the pleasure of attending a lot of events. The All-Star Breakfast was probably the highlight. It's where teachers get to recognize individuals who may not be honor students, but they've made a huge stride forward. And it's always a pleasure to see that. So, ditto. It was great.
Well, I also attended a lot of activities. I was able to go to the Eureka High Symphonic Band and Orchestra at the Arkley Center, and the Alice Burney Multicultural Festival Fair dropped in there. The FFA Awards Dinner, the DECA Banquet, the Eureka High Honors Night. I want to thank them all for the very timely invitations, because it's very helpful when those invitations come early enough that we can get to those activities. The thing that all of them had in common is that it really brought home how important extracurricular activities are. There was, obviously, when you see the parents and the families and the kids, they found a connection to their school through these activities, and I hope we can continue all of those extracurricular activities. I also went to graduations and adult ed, same, Eureka High, they were great. I have an update to the Safe Routes to Schools program. The crossing guard letter of support, which we were going to do, is changed, and it's more complicated than probably what I just heard about it this morning. So hopefully, in the next week or so, we'll find out if we can still proceed with that. But we did do a walkability audit at Lafayette, and it was extremely good. There were people from the county as well as the not city, all county, because Lafayette's out in the county. But it was surprising. Probably Lafayette, I think, had the worst sidewalk issues. And fortunately, on the new county-wide grant cycle for Safe Routes to Schools, the Lafayette sidewalks, or a number of the sidewalks, are right at the top of their list to do. So some of that will be done when the money comes into the county. And along with teacher Chris Chapin, I guess, volunteered to put together a parent group in the fall, so I believe Lafayette is charged up and raring to go to make Lafayette safe. And
we have a whole pile full of surveys, so we didn't have much time to get the surveys out, but we've successfully, I went around, handed each one out to each classroom, talked about it with the kids, and we had a surprisingly large number of surveys returned.
And is somebody picking those up from you?
Well, originally they said yes, and then they said no, and then they said that I was going to have to do it, and now Public Health has stepped up.
Okay.
So that would be great.
Great. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you for attending that.
And then I also attended the BEST school-wide discipline system training that was held, and I was very impressed. Wow. It's going to be district-wide, but it's also tailored to each school, so that, and I think that was the most, the thing that impressed me the most was that each school could tailor it to their particular site, staff, and concerns. It was very practical, clear expectations, it wasn't too complex. But I do have to say, I mean, some of what I was thinking when I was there is that this is another new program. And I'd just like to acknowledge that I think our teachers and our administrators have had a lot this year. I mean, and there's new textbooks and there's new curriculum. And so hopefully maybe next year we can, I don't know, is it a calm down or
Our goal next year, the phrase that we're using is that next year we're going to paint a bridge. We've been doing a lot over the last couple of years to build the structure and put it in place. It's there through a lot of hard work of the employees of this district. It's there, and we're improving dramatically. Now it's time to go back, and this comes from the Golden Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge, they just start on one side and paint all the way through, then they go back and they paint, and it's just a continuous process. And we need to get to where we're done building the bridge, we're done adding on to the bridge. It is time to paint the bridge. We do see this discipline thing as this positive discipline as part of painting the bridge, because in order for our students to learn, and in order for our students to feel safe at school to learn, we need to be talking a consistent message. So really, another phrase the superintendent uses on a continuous basis. We're still keeping the main thing, and the main thing is learning and student achievement. And we're doing that by providing a safe, friendly environment for our students to learn. So, we agree with you, and I think Mr. Minimus and the teachers would agree with you as well. We've thrown a lot at them over the last couple of years, and it's time for it just to settle down a little bit and really just kind of go.
Jan?
I just wanted to add that we were worried about that as well, but when we rolled it out to all the sites here, from that spurred another presentation. So he came on the last day of school, and 45 district staff people came to Lafayette to hear it again.
Wow.
On the last day of school, when they really just wanted to clean up their classrooms and do their report cards and close up their, finish their cues. So it was very rewarding to know that people really believe in this. And we did a little mini survey, and of the 40 I received back, 38 said, yes, this sounds like a good program for us that we could do and roll out. We're going to roll it out after winter break. We have a plan in place to get people trained in the fall with site teams. So they really felt positive, and they felt that it was necessary, it was needed to be able to keep the main thing the main thing.
Great, that's great to hear. Okay, thank you. That's it for board members' reports. Fran is recuperating from shoulder surgery, and John has unfortunately got that upper respiratory virus that's going around Humboldt County. So, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Looks like all familiar faces tonight. Okay, we'll move on down to the consent calendar. And we polled item J24 and J25. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns on the other items?
Can I note one thing? It is actually personnel report number 19, not 18.
Okay. Correction. Okay, if there are no other concerns or questions, I need a motion to approve the consent calendar with the correction to J7 and J24 and J25 poll.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. The aforementioned changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. And we'll move down to discussion action. K27, awarded bid, the Eureka High School Annex Marshall School Site Project.
in order to move the district office from this site, which has been sold, over to the Marshall Annex. It is in need of some modernization and changes so that it can be utilized as an office building. Way back when we talked about this, the thought was this would be somewhere between a $600,000 to $800,000 project, and what we talked about at that point is selling this building for $1.1 million would leave us some ample room should the project go a little bit above that, as well as some money to put in some built-in furniture specifically for the business department, so that we run all of the necessary electrical cables and computer cables in trays that are out of the way and usable for the ladies and gentlemen that work in that. The bids came in. We had 4 bids. The lowest bid is Danco Builders, who have done work for us before. They did the retaining wall back behind Eureka High School's gymnasium. They also did the gym, the new floor, and repair of the roof there. So Danco, which is, by the way, an arcade company local, which we were happy to see that as well. Their base bid is $616,450, which, like I said, is the lowest. We did have additives. We had additives 1, 2, and 3. Those were just to get a general idea of what other pieces were out there. Additive 1 is continuing to put a T-bar roof, in other words, dropping the ceiling down, putting a T-bar roof, and finishing the walls of the far 2 buildings. Those are designed to be a book room and another room that's really doesn't have, it was going to be the copy room, but we've since moved the copy room out, so it's an extra room at this point. The copy room has been moved out to the portable. We do not need additive number 1. That's something that, as I talked to Charlie, it can be done in-house and doesn't need the extent of work that we would need to put office pieces in place. Additive 2 are the 2 rooms on what has been determined as the boardroom side of the building. We had 2 rooms there, and those should be done, or it is our recommendation that they are done, which would add $51,765,000 to the project. And then additive 3, oh, and I'm sorry, and the reason we feel that those should be done is just for potential growth or moving other programs back in there. Then they're finished off spaces, and we don't have to worry about coming back and doing those at some other time. And then additive 3 is, again, on the far side of the building, there's a small custodial room and another room next to that. And again, we don't need the finished work in those 2 buildings like we would, or those 2 rooms like we would in other places. So it would be my recommendation to pull additive number 3 as well. So basically, with the base bid and then an increase of the additive number 2, this would start as a $668,000, $215 project. Again, well within the scope that we had previously talked about. It should be noted, though, that of course with these change orders come along. The good news about Marshall is that we have a good idea of what we're getting into, because that building has had modernization before. It's got a lot of the handicap accessibility that's already completed with the ramp that's out front. It's also had an electrical upgrade. So some of the pieces that are necessary to do, again, we think the change orders, and again, consulting with Charlie Bettini as well as our architects, they feel that we should be able to contain the change orders of $50,000 or less. That would put this project up at about $710,000, $715,000. Furniture we're looking at is right around the $100,000 neighborhood. We get out of this project for a little over $800,000. Conservative guesstimates, of course, but again, we're real comfortable. I'm real comfortable with that. With a $1.1 million sale of this building, it still keeps us under that, and hopefully gives us about $200,000 somewhere to continue to work with, or maybe even $250,000 to work with other facility needs of the district. If you have any questions.
Is there any asbestos abatement to be done in this project?
There is, and that's part of the bid. That was part of the base bid. Interestingly enough, it's not on the tile floor where you normally find asbestos. Interestingly, with the Marshall building, it's in the paint on the walls. Evidently, at one point, it was industry standard to put asbestos fibers in the paint to give the wall some texture and also for longevity of the paint. So that's part of the base bid, is the abatement of that asbestos, and bringing in a company to do that. Also in that bid, we also have lead paint. And so we need to sort of lead paint and cover over. And a lot of places we're just going to be covering it over, so it doesn't have to be abated, but in the areas where it does have to be abated, and specifically around the 2-hour firewall that's being required by DSA, we'll have some lead paint abatement as well.
Okay, and that's the only asbestos.
Yeah, we had a study done on, we had a study done on that building probably 5 or 6 years ago. It was prior to my coming here, where they looked at how much asbestos was in that building. Again, that was part of the modernization that was done on that facility when they looked at that.
Any questions? Are there any questions by members of the audience? Okay, so the motion before us is to award the bid for the Eureka High School Annex Marshall School Site Project to Danco Builders Northwest for $668,215.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
You're going to surprise me? Oh, okay.
I'm not
Oh, it's been moved and seconded to award the bid for the Eureka High School Annex Marshall School Site Project to Danco Builders Northwest for $668,215. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion carries. Thank you, Henry.
No.
We want you up here, Chuck. We want you up here.
Oh, you need me up here.
Could you come with me and assist? Please.
Rock and roll. Okay. Budget adoption. Page 28.
It is that time of the year where Eureka City Schools is required to adopt our budget for next year. The interesting piece about this is, of course, the politics that are taking place in the state. We passed the law was passed that our legislature wouldn't get their salaries if a budget didn't come to the state. And a budget did come to the state, but our governor rejected it in the only time a complete budget has ever been vetoed by a governor. And the interesting part now is the politics are going on because it's a Democrat-controlled legislature and a Democratic governor vetoed the bill, and he did so rather quickly and threw it back at the legislation with comments like it was more trickery that was going on and this was an unsustainable budget that was counting on phantom money coming into the state. So some real powerful language by the governor to move forward and to kick the budget back to the legislature. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do. Governor Brown has stated that he will have another budget ready for the legislature, and that budget was supposed to come out either late today or early tomorrow sometime, so it'll be interesting where the governor's going. The good news for Eureka City Schools and for schools in general is that the governor, as well as both parties, have stated repeatedly that they don't want to take money away from schools still. However, on the business side of the house, we are required to use the latest information that we have, which is the May revise, and our requirement is that we pass a budget here at Eureka City Schools prior to the end of this month and submit that prior to really knowing what's going on with the state. Remember that we have 45 days once a budget is enacted for us to come back to the Board of Education, and if there are necessary changes in regards to the state's total budget and what that does to us, we have 45 days after the budget comes or is passed by the state before we have to do anything. So here is our budget. Just going back to our fingertip facts that we've given before, and you guys have this in front of you. We have an enrollment projection of 3,792 students. Our October 2010 CBEDS was 3,888. Good news, bad news. The bad news is that we're still in declining enrollment. The good news is that our decline is slowing down, and we've seen a 2-year trend of it just kind of bottoming out a little bit. The other good news is that as we met with elementary principals today, our incoming K numbers look really strong again. But this whole presentation is good news, bad news. So the bad news is it still looks like we continue to lose them in 2nd or 3rd grade. And again, we're losing more students at that grade level to leaving the county completely than we are to other schools. People who make the decision to go to other schools seem to do that pre-K. Once we have students in, they tend to stay with Eureka City Schools all the way up until most of the time high school before they start looking at another program. We are still losing students to the Academy of the Redwoods more than we should. But most students that start K with us stay at least through 8th grade unless they leave the area completely. So we're still hanging on to our kids. So of course we're not funded on enrollment, we're funded on our ADA, average daily attendance, and our average daily attendance projection for 11-12 is 3,545.52. It's hard to educate that 0.52 kid, isn't it?
No, I get a lot of fun.
The basics, we still have 4 elementary schools, we have middle school, high school, we have continuation high school, we still have adult education. We're one of the few in the state that still has it. Interestingly enough, our pupil to teacher ratio for 11-12 is 21.14. Keep in mind that incorporates all of our teachers. So we have teachers at both high school and middle school that are out on prep at different times during the day. We also have resource teachers that technically don't have kids on their roll. They're pulling students out from other places. So we're still trying to load as close to the contractual limit. And although we bailed out of class size reduction as a sweeping, we're all in CSR K through 3, we still have a lot of classes that qualify for some CSR money with a little bit of the penalty because we're still sitting with classes, sometimes 24, 23, but sometimes somewhere in that ratio. What else did I want to hit on this, Paul?
I think you covered the main points right there. Again, that pupil to teacher ratio is very good relative to state averages, so that's something to be proud of as well.
So this going back from the assumptions, there's some interesting pieces, and if any of you can read that one, that's amazing. There's some interesting pieces in this and some things that you're going to continue to hear through this. We still have the revenue limit COLA adjustment of a negative 0.39. Not that big a deal, but just something to keep an eye on. We have our state revenue limit deficit of negative 19.608. The state still owes us money. If we'll ever see that money, if they ever get us back to a zero deficit, that would be lovely. I'm not going to hold my breath. The couple of big numbers that we really have to keep an eye on is the revenue limit subject to voter-approved tax extensions. And this has been the big piece that the governor's been trying to get 2 Republicans to cross the aisle and allow that to be put on a ballot. And then when he did his budget in May, part of the May revise was that he was going to find a way to make sure that we got that money. So we're still looking at $1.2 million to Eureka City Schools, that if something flipped real dramatically and all of a sudden both parties came to a point where they felt like that money should be taken away from schools, that still has a potential out there with a suspension of Proposition 98. Again, both parties are saying they don't want to go there, but just something we have to keep an eye on. We have some other big numbers. ARA and SFSF, the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, and Secure Funds, State Fiscal Stabilization Fund, thank you. For Eureka City Schools was $2.329 million. That money's gone. And remember, we continue to talk with the board about the funding cliff. Here's that $2 million funding cliff. And we knew it was coming, so we've been planning for it. We're in the final year of the federal jobs money. Remember, that was money that came from the federal government, and they said, hey, hire back teachers. That's exactly what we did with it. We spent a majority of our money in the first year. The second part of our money is now hanging out there, and it's about $400,000, but that's going to be gone after this year. So again, that funding cliff pushes out a little bit more, but those are numbers and things that we're going to need to keep an eye on in the next couple of years. Again, our declining enrollment is indeed declining. We're up here at 42,087 students in 06-07. We continue to go down. Again, that is starting to slow down. You can see it here and here, and this is a very conservative projection for next year. But if you look at the dramatic drops that we had in 06-07 to 07-08, 07-08 to 08-09, we really have we're flattening out a little bit, and we're mirroring the county.
How much of that is charter schools?
You know, not a lot. The one charter school that's killing us, quite honestly, is the Academy of the Redwoods, which still to this day baffles me. We offer far more accelerated programs than the Academy of the Redwoods does. We have AP courses. I know from a father's point of view, my daughter walked into a four-year university and already had units towards graduation because she had taken AP courses at the high school. We have students who walk in as a sophomore. We have students who walk in, you know, halfway through their sophomore, depending on the AP courses that they take. We really do offer an accelerated program, but we have a group of parents that have decided that that idea of a AA along with their high school diploma at the same time is more appealing, and it's something we can't offer. But that's the biggest one we're losing. Other charter schools, very small numbers around, and we continue to monitor that and take a look at it. This slide is just to tell you that 63% of the district's revenues are generated from the district's revenue limit. So the majority of our revenues are right in here, 63%. We have a little bit from federal, 20%. We have other state and other local. But again, the bulk of our money comes from our revenue limit, which is funded by ADA. The interesting thing about that is they continue to talk about education losing money, K-12 education, and then community colleges losing money, and four-year colleges losing money. I just heard on the radio that CR is going to increase their cost for students, and I know for a fact that a kid in the UC system, the cost is going up there as well. That's something we can't do. We can't charge our students more money as some of these other institutions are able to do to offset the loss of revenue. We get what we get, and we kind of move forward with that. In our expenditures category, it takes people to do what we do, and 81% of the district's total expenditures are committed to employees of our district, whether that's through salary or benefits. 81% of the amount of money that we spend is people. This is actually a pretty good number. In some districts it's as high as 88, and it's, you know, we continue to follow the essential program components and are doing things like buying textbooks, and other pieces to support our teachers in the classroom. So we're still sitting at 81, but you can see that books and supplies is 5%, operating is 9%. That's, you know, just running the place takes money, and then the salaries are all cut out with benefits, but we continue to buy people. And this slide has a lot of information on it. It's basically to show you we were allowed to start sweeping categorical funds. And one of the real worries that the state had in regards to sweeping categoricals was that school districts would start to buy more and more stuff or people. And this is to show that Eureka City Schools really isn't doing that. Although we're sweeping the money, if you look at the comparison between 08-09, then to 9-10, 10-11, and next year, these pieces of the pie remain about the same size. So we swept that money. But in sweeping that money, we're really putting it right back into the areas that it was already being spent. So it's not like we swept that money and started dumping things that we had been doing for years and went out on a different tangent. We continue to spend the money that is given to us pretty much as it was earmarked when it was sent to us. So although we sweep and people got really nervous about they're going to sweep the money, where is that going to go for? Our statistics show us that we're spending that money basically in the same places that we always have been. In a PowerPoint presentation, you can go landscape, you can go portrait. You can't go back and forth. It confuses the machine. The remainder of this presentation will be this way. I'm going to fly through to, this is unrestricted, this is restricted, but here's where our combined is for 11-12, and this is that 3-year projection that we're required to do from the state. A couple of things to keep in mind. Our total revenue for 10-11 was $36,234,000. It goes down in 11-12 to $32,159,000. It goes down again in 12-13 with $31,262,000. And then it holds pretty steady there out in 13-14. I will tell you that a 3-year projection is very thin the further it goes out. I've told you guys a lot of that. But especially right now with the volatility of the state, 11-12 is what we're here to talk about. 12-13 is something to keep an eye on, but the numbers that are out there in 13-14 right now are so far out there with the volatility of money in the state right now that really worrying about what sits out there in 13-14 is kind of crazy. The good news is that Eureka City Schools continues to certify positive, even with what we consider to be a very conservative budget that lowballs the amount of revenue and says that we're going to spend at least, we're not going to spend up to where we are, but we put contingency pieces in there just in case. We are still a positive budget for 3 years out, and the number of school districts in the state of California that can say that they're positive for 3 years is getting smaller and smaller. There are more and more schools that are going qualified, and there are even more schools that are going negative in the 3 years out. So the cuts that this board has made over the last couple of years are really starting to show. The other piece, and it's a little bit of a pat on our own backs, but I'm going to pat away anyway. We did not lay off any tenured teachers in Eureka City Schools this year, and we had very few reductions to our classified. The only reductions in classified were specific money that went away for specific programs. And I'm really proud to say that, because if you continue to look at FICMAC or other areas that report what's going on business-wise for schools, there's a tremendous amount of layoffs that are going on statewide, and we were able to avoid that this year. Our total expenditures this year, $36,230,000, which is not bad considering the money coming in was $36,230,000, but we spend a little bit more, and we are showing that continued trend of deficit spending. 33 million, 32 million, 32 million, all of those are higher than the amount of money that's coming in. Luckily, we have a tremendous amount of money in our ending fund balance, and if you drop down here, here's our beginning fund balance, and then projected ending fund balances. We're spending it down, starting with what we have at about 8.5 million this year, down to 6.9, down to 4.9, down to 3.9. But again, those are very conservative projections, and they're leaving out that one piece which sits down, the contingency for approved voter taxes. Again, there's that 1.2, which 2 years out is 2.3, and which 3 years out is $3.5 million. That's money that the county has asked us not to put up here in revenues yet. So it's sitting down there. So while we're looking at numbers that show us continuing to spend down and show a structural deficit, we show that structural deficit and can remain positive even if the voter-approved tax extension doesn't go through. So regardless of how it plays out in the state, we're sitting okay. If it doesn't go through, I think we have to make some real significant changes when we come back to talk about 12-13. And we would do that as we show the, if it were to come that way and we have time to come back with another budget for the state. But as we sit right now, we're hanging in there. If you look at our budgeted reserve fund, which is at the bottom, we're at, well, I can't even read that. Anyway, we're at, is it 6.93? Yeah, 6.93, and we continue on. Even the third year out, we're still above the 3% reserve that we're required to keep. So we're hanging in there. We're doing okay. Cash is king, and one of the things that we're really going to have to keep an eye on as we go along is that our projected cash as of June 30th, 2011, we're sitting a little bit over $6 million in cash. We have to make our payroll every month, and remember that a significant amount of money is being deferred every year. Some of the deferrals take place inside the same school year, but some of the deferrals push out. And Paul, I jumped over that in the slide, but is it 41% of the money?
Yeah, 45%.
45% of the money that Eureka City Schools receives from the state is deferred in some way. And how much of it is deferred from one year to another?
31%.
31%. So, cash is king, and this shows us that our projected general fund cash balance as of June 30th, 2012 is all the way down to 2.4. So it's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Again, this is a real cloudy picture because of the deferrals. The governor said he wants the deferrals to end. The legislature came back with a budget that contained the deferrals in it, and that was one of the pieces that the governor called a gimmick and wouldn't allow. So he's trying to put an end to deferrals, and we'd really like him to, because deferrals are really difficult for us to continue cash and making payroll and paying our bills on a timely basis. I don't know any of us that can do that with our mortgages, where we say, hey, you know, we're gonna pay it, but we'd like to wait a little bit, and it doesn't work that way in the real world. The budget assumption page pages you have attached, and again, these are assumptions that were made so that the budget and how we prepared the budget again as you go out for 3 years. Again, just our revenue limit is just kind of hanging in there right now. You know, it's right here again, the 1.2 million if the tax extensions are not approved by the voters, and that gets big, that number grows because we've got that money sitting out there. Class size reduction K3, again, we receive some money for that, and it's really difficult to project, but we stay on top of that through the entire school year. It's money that we receive at the end of the year as we fill out the paperwork for which of our classes qualified for, even with a little bit of penalties because we're higher than 20. Federal programs is something that we're really keeping an eye on. Title I is projected to be 15% reduced. Project Serve and Even Start are gone. So federal funds for specific programs are starting to go away, and it's looking as the federal government continues with their budget, we're going to have more federal programs that are reduced. One of the ones that's coming up right now that we're talking about, we lost our Carl Perkins money, which is a federal grant. Our Carl Perkins money funded the job market that we had, that we continue to have, but we have the job market on hold right now for 30 days as we make a better determination of how we might be able to fund that, or if we're going to make that decision. I'm sorry, if you guys are going to make that decision to fund it in a different way. Again, RI and SFSF go away. The flexibility transfers are still out there, and like I showed you, we continue to flex money, but we use it well. That lottery, the lottery was going to save education, it was so much money. It's not. We get about $110 per ADA in unrestricted, so mandated costs continue. We have money in claims that are out there, but the state hasn't funded the claims for quite some time. Occasionally we'll get a little bit of money that trickle in. It's still a tremendous amount of work, and at times, quite honestly, our principals say not nice things about us in emails, asking them to continue to do this amount of work for money that we're not receiving. But it's something that we're going to continue to do because it does trickle in every once in a while, and we continue to receive money. Step and column, of course, is in there. We've got that put in the budget. Health and welfare, we have capped right now. We have caps for both our certificated as well as our classified employees. So that won't change unless it's negotiated. And then with our retiree health, we have a total of 33 dropping off at various times during the school year. That's when they hit 65. We're going to have 24 drop off in 12-13 and 20 drop off in 13-14. So that it just continues to change as we continue to roll through. Again, child care is proposed to be cut by 15% from the state, which would require us, and we budgeted putting another $60,000 towards child care out of the general fund to keep it afloat. But we are also looking at different ways to make cuts inside the program so that it's self-sustaining, and we'll continue to do that. It just hit us kind of quickly. Again, adult education, the money that we receive pays for technology and a lot of other pieces. We still put $750,000 out there towards adult education every year. Food services has crept up a little bit again. When I first walked into the district, we were up around $400,000. We dropped it down to about $200,000 to $250,000. It's creeping up again a little bit, and that's just the cost of everything that we have. The amount of money that we're reimbursed by the state for students that are on free and reduced money. Lunch stays about the same, and yet costs continue to go up a little bit. So we continue to do that. We have minimal deferred maintenance work planned, but we do have deferred maintenance money set aside. And part of our plan is as we continue to push out the next couple of years, remember we swept some of that deferred money, we're going to continue to push deferred maintenance money out because we still have needs in the district that have to be completed. This is just a page on the back, and it's just with the whole Gatsby 54 designations, some of the things that used to be called this are now called this. This is just a cheat sheet for you guys as you go through your process. So it's just the state changing the way they call things, and that's just so Paul doesn't get really confident in what he does as a CBO, because the rules change all the time. And that's our proposed budget. I would be happy to answer any questions that anybody has, including questions from Principal Bush on how to appropriately use the whiteboard during the presentation. No question.
Couple of things. We used to consider the unfunded mandates, the special ed inclusion on the general fund. What is that?
Leanne, we're currently encroaching around $1 million.
It's more, I think it's a little bit more than that. Well, we had federal special ed era funds, so I think it took us down to about $1 million, but once those go away, it historically has been about 2.5.
2.5 million?
And Hank, I like the way you called that, because it is an unfunded mandate.
I think underfunded.
True, yeah, we receive minimal.
Well, it's required that we do it. It's just that they don't pay us what it costs.
Right, and not only are we required to do it, they don't pay us what it costs. The other piece is that there's a maintenance of effort that districts have to maintain. So if we were to attempt to make a dramatic cut to special education, we would actually have to justify to the state why we were doing that, whether it was retirements or different things like that, because we have to have a certain maintenance of our same effort that we keep out there.
Now then, how much one-time money is used in this to balance the one-time money that's coming in?
Well,
we've talked about what it's going to cost to refurbish Marshall and the sale of this property to pay for that, which I'm not sure that's really clear in here.
mm-hmm.
But one of the problems I had with the sale of this property has to do with the problems that we saw when we sold parcel A and parcel B. That money evaporated on cost.
The biggest chunk of one-time money that we have right now is adult education, and they had saved a considerable amount of money in order to build their own facility or purchase their own facility at some time. We are still sitting on a majority of that money. It was about $3.5 million when we rolled it in. We are still sitting on a majority of that money, and it can be seen in two different places. The first place is we have it in the ending fund balance, which we have, because of that, we have a very healthy ending fund balance. The other place that we have is we have it set aside in a capital outlay fund of $1.5 million, which was money we slid over there immediately to make sure that it just didn't get lost. If you look at our 3-year projection, it looks as if we're spending that money down, and a pretty significant amount of that. But again, it's really a safety net for us, and it's the safety net for that $330 per ADA or the $1.2 million. If that $1.2 million stays in there, and we roll it out for the 3 years, and it gets to be the $3.5 million that would be the total amount that comes in, we're holding pretty even and doing a pretty good job of not spending it down. So it's still out there and available. It's our safety net, and if we have to use it for our safety net, it should be a 1-year safety net, because again, if we get that $330 per ADA or any other significant cut to ADA, we're going to have to come back to this board and make some significant changes in what we're doing next year. And I'm talking budgetarily, so 11-12 is up and operational. We'd have to look at the cuts that we had projected for 12-13 and make enough cuts to get us back to, barely deficit spending instead of this huge amount that we show with the safety net out there. So one-time money-wise, we use it more as a safety net, less as a balancing, and are working really hard to make sure that the money that's coming in is pretty close to what's being spent out. But we are deficit spending, just not a tremendous amount of money each year. That kind of answer it? It's out there, and it's still out there.
So that our declining enrollment has tapered off just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We're using those numbers for 12-13 and 13-14.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's shown in a couple of different ways. We project out, and we've been, the business firm has been very accurate in their projections out over the couple of years as we, and that's something else we're very conservative about. We don't kid ourselves and say, hey, declining enrollment's done, let's fund ourselves to here. We keep that slow curve out there, and we use a historical trend to show ourselves, and again, slowly bottoming out. So we do that, but on the other side of that, as full-time equivalent FTEs for both certificated and classified. We show a little bit of reduction in those numbers each year as well. Unfortunately, as we've talked about for a long time, we lose money quicker than we lose the positions, because when the kids leave, it's not like 24 first graders get up and leave Washington School so we can lay off that teacher. It's spread out across the schools, and you have to let it slowly sit down a little bit before you can make the FTE change to it as well.
Is there any questions by members of the audience?
One other thing.
Okay.
In the book, the whole budget, on the criteria and standard 6B, the projected operating expenditures, books and supplies.
What page is it?
It is page 2.
Page what?
Right at the beginning.
6B.
Under tab 1,
Other
page 2,
expenditures. Okay.
2 or 3.
I'm sorry, which tab?
Tab 1,
Tab 1.
page 2,
Page 2.
6B. At the top.
Other expenditures?
The operating expenditures, books and supplies, services, are within the standard for the budget and 2 subsequent years, and that's not met.
You know, offhand, I don't know why. I'll have to get an answer for you,
Okay.
because we've been
Just wasn't.
we've been doing a good job of buying books and supplies.
But
I'll
do you
find out.
not need it if you overspend it?
Good guess.
So it could
Okay.
be
It could be
either
either
way.
way.
It could be, yeah, it's a percentage range they give you, and
Okay.
I'll find out why.
We did spend a lot, quite a bit.
Well, the one question I had was on enrollment, the other one's criteria. This wasn't really that.
Okay. You answered my question. I wanted to know where the Lincoln money was. Okay, we are looking for a motion to adopt the budget as presented for the fiscal year 2011-2012.
So moved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the fiscal year 2011-2012 budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. We have a budget
For the time being.
for the time being. Okay,
Thank you, Greg.
now we move to discussion, L29. This is agenda item request for an opportunity for board members to request agenda items for the upcoming year.
Attached, you have what is our tickle file as we meet and talk about the agenda items that are coming up. As we talked in our board meeting, the last time we talked about procedures, one of the questions was, well, how do I get something on the agenda? Or how do we determine if it's a special meeting or if it's just a report? So what we included was what we work off of and how we move forward. And as we talked with Judy about this, it was to get this to all board members so that you guys can look it over. And then we can start having discussions about, is this something that we really want to have on there? Are there other things that we would like to have on there that aren't there? And then provide board members an opportunity to either contact myself, Judy or John. Judy and John are the 2 board members that do agenda setting, and or Nikki, because she brings things through from the tickle file. We're just trying to open up as many avenues as possible for board members to put on the agenda what you would like for your board meetings. So while we're not looking for we're not looking to finish this tonight, we're throwing it out there and saying, hey, here it is. We really believe strongly these are your meetings, so tell us what you want.
So I have a list.
I'm still new at this game, and learning. And, I've sat on that side of the audience for a number of years, and so this one kind of took me by surprise. There's a couple of things that I'm very interested in, the whole facilities plan and what's going on with the components of that. That's something that's bothered me quite a bit. And people have asked me a lot of questions about it. And I'm not sure of all the rationale and how much of what is a done deal. And I need to explore that further, and I'm not sure how that works in. And then the other one is I've heard the discussion that there's some thoughts about where they're going, and the district is going with Winship as a facility, and the potential usages for that. And I'll definitely need a lot of discussion on that. And I'm not sure the timelines for any of those things.
Well, I'm going to ask Judy and Minky for help, because we had talked about one of our upcoming meetings in the summer, and I think we moved it to September, because we were talking about doing that August.
With the possibility of moving back to September.
Because we were talking about having a workshop dedicated solely to facilities and the facility plan. So, yeah, I think, and the reason we were talking about October with a possible move to September was the whole Marshall discussion was one that, you know, I think now that we've moved far enough along on that one, I think it's time that we, you know, and we should probably wait till we have 5 board members to schedule it, but yeah, August, September, we need to have a facilities plan again, which was done last summer. What a great idea.
A workshop.
Yeah, we've done this workshop, and yeah, it works out. I like the idea because it gives you guys a chance to just focus strictly on that, and the conversation can last for 2 hours at the workshop, whereas in a board meeting, if it's part of a regular agenda, we start worrying about, you know, going on until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, because boy, after a long day, you guys, all of us are dragging a little bit. So we will continue to set a date for a facilities plan.
And I think the Winship, to just kind of piggyback on what you were saying, one of the things I would like to see us do is pick a topic, and maybe it's what to do with Winship, that we go out to the community with, some kind of town hall meetings or something that we go out to the community, because I think it's been a while. We've been in crisis mode for a few years here, and I'd like to see us take this next year, even if it's 3 of them, or, you know, but just determine what's the best time of the year, go out to the school sites and hold the meetings, see who shows up. But it needs, maybe this is the topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe not, maybe it's another topic, but that was an idea.
I was
Okay. I also would like to request as a regular agenda item, and this would have to be after the school year starts, but preferably in the fall, district-wide athletic program. What are we doing? What sports do we offer? I'd like some, show me what we do at the high school.
And expenditures as well.
And expenditures, and even what other schools are doing in the county. How are we on, because I've heard different things. Oh, this school's doing this, or this school's doing that, or they've eliminated, or we're having trouble having games, or having a season. And I think it's been a while since we've even talked about athletics. The other one, the next one for a regular, and Marcel isn't going to like this, kind of a technology inventory where maybe it doesn't have to be real perfect inventory, but and I don't mean just the computer, but we're ordering smart boards, and we're putting more of those out. We're putting the presenters. Where are we? Elementary, middle, high school, in having the kind of technology and utilizing it in the sites. And what's the age? Do we have a computer age problem, and therefore we need to be looking at some of our one-time monies to be in the near future? Okay. And then I'd still like the focused board visits as a possibility next year. And just to share, this was an idea at convention where a topic, usually an academic topic, like maybe an intervention class or one other, that we would hear a report from teachers and staff at a board meeting, and then we would schedule a visit to, say, a high school or Zane or one of the schools, and see it in the classroom. And of course, it would only be 2 board members, because you can't, and then maybe a couple community members. There's a school, I can't remember which school it is, because I gave you that packet of information. That have been doing this for a number of years, and it's quite successful in kind of taking it out to the community, so community leaders are then out talking about what's happening in our school on a topic that they've received some education about. So it's not just, you know, fluff. It's substantive information. So.
Cabinet really likes the idea of the focused board visits we've talked about at a time. We also like the idea of intervention. A focused board visit is you start at like 9 a.m. and go till noon, and you're visiting classrooms, and it's not just it's not a pop-in, how's it going visit. It's talking to kids, talking to teachers, really asking, how's this going? What would make it better? What do you think about it? And I like intervention just because we have spent a tremendous amount of money on intervention. It's a direction that we've started to push really hard in a lot of areas. It affects our master schedule. It affects funding. It affects staffing. It really crosses the board, and we've made a lot of promises in regards to intervention. The most specific one being it's not a lifelong sentence. Yeah, we still like that idea, and you're right. We just need to get into the school year and get it going, and good idea.
That's my list. Randy, any ideas or topics that you're?
I like this format. I like that it's all, this is a nice, we're busy.
We're busy.
To have it all in my calendar like this where I can see all the stuff that we're doing each month. I was interested, I wasn't aware that the resolutions actually were redone every year. I thought once the resolution was made, they're actually redone each year.
It depended on ed code and policy.
Nikki keeps us on task.
Somebody keeps tabs and all that. Can't think of anything right now that I want to add to it.
But this was just
it's open.
Yeah, it's open.
So we can continue to discuss it.
So board members can utilize the board member reports time, and you can also just email someone one of us on the agenda review setting committee. And
I'm not sure how to address another topic, but we talked in terms of workshops, direction we're taking academically, the MOU that's being worked on with the high school to have collaboration time. We want to see hard data on students that whatever they have done shows improvement. I would like at some point to have some data showing that some of these programs that we do have some result.
Well, I was wondering if Rich was sitting next to me smiling yet, because that's what he is now.
Sounds like some handouts.
Well, no, one of the things that we are required to do, and that we do, and it falls mostly in Rich's department, is when the CSTs come out, the California Standardized Tests come out, it is a requirement that we come to the board and we report out. So we will have reports as to where our schools are in regards to their AYP, their API, the progress that our students have made, the number of proficient and advanced and so on and so forth. And that's, we normally receive that information near the end of summer.
End of July, and we can usually make it available early August to staff.
But it's something that we come to a board meeting, it's a lengthy discussion, normally we hold Rich to about an hour. But it's an important discussion, and that's where, those are the questions that's when you start asking those questions, and what we ask board members to do is ask us where you want us to drill down on information.
Is that on September 7th? Is that a report on 2000 that's accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's there, and one of the things that we and board members do is they ask us, can you please drill down on more information here? So back, and whether we use that through, benchmark testing or better cover what the CST has required. But that's where we will really start talking about results, and that's where board members are asked to request, okay, what other results do you want to see? What other, what benchmarks would you like us to hit during the year and show you where we're at?
The performance indexes, the student performance is the bottom line in all of this. But the accountability for some of the programs, and I'll stick with collaboration. How do you evaluate if that is making a difference? And
something like collaboration. Where we're going to see results for that, where results are slowly going to start showing themselves in regards to collaboration. I think it's just in the overall CSTs that we start to see in places where we were starting to go down, or where we're starting to flatline, or where we start to show improvement. I think that's we can say that's a direct result of collaboration, of teachers spending time developing pacing guides, and teachers spending time developing common lessons and themes that they're using. You can't say, oh, collaboration got us this, but the conversation is collaboration is helping us with the improvement that's showing here, and here. I saw Rich turn on his microphone, so
Good first vision. Collaboration is one of the essential program components. And, in the field of educational research, it is really difficult to get conclusive evidence that any one particular initiative or intervention is having success with students. It's hard to get controlled studies in our world because it's a messy world. It's not a clean world like a laboratory. But researchers over the past several years have come up with a set of indicators which California has distilled down into the essential program components, and there's 9 of them. And then when taken as a whole, when all of those things are implemented, districts tend to improve. They tend to get better results. So that I could foresee, in addition to having some student outcomes measures being reported, how well kids do with reading, language, and math, we would also report progress over time with implementing the essential program components. So as we look at coming into next fall, that will be the 3rd fall that we will have an APS rating from each of the schools, and we can see over time how they have improved the implementation of the language arts program, improved implementation of the math program, how they have improved implementation of collaboration, that's one of the elements, how they have improved pacing guides and so on and so forth. We can take a look at both implementation measures as well as outcome measures.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience have any comments or requests? No, Lori, what a look. I'm not going to add to mine. Okay. I think we've come to the end. There is some closed session, a brief closed session for the board and the superintendent. And is there any public comment on closed session items? We're going to meet to discuss item C1. Okay, hearing none. Open session is adjourned.
Yeah.